the sales of housing in India. Now, despite the economic headwinds, despite all troubles that are plaguing us, somehow Indians are going out there and buying houses like never before. Housing sales in India seem to have hit an all-time high, with specifically the city of Pune witnessing a 65% growth. So what exactly is going on? Why are so many Indians buying so many houses at record sales levels? We have a couple of very special gentlemen joining us, and of course my colleague Karthik Malhotra, as always, being with us here in the studio. Thank you, Karthik, for being with us.
Krishna, morning.
Right, good morning, and we have a couple of very special gentlemen joining us this morning. We have Mr. Prashant Thakur, Head of Research at ANAROCK. In fact, it was ANAROCK Consultancy which put out this report. Thank you, Prashant, for joining us this morning. We also have Mr. Arvind Nandan, Managing Director, Research and Consulting of Savills India, joining us. Arvind, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us this morning. I'm going to begin with Prashant. It's an ANAROCK report. Talk to us. What's the logic? Tell us from where you're picking up this big trend that housing sales have hit a record high in India.
Very good morning to all the viewers. It's kind of quite surprising that the momentum is still continuing in spite of the talk of interest rates being too high. See, there are a couple of factors I think, in my opinion, are playing out. Few are very softer aspects, like, a couple of years back, pre-COVID, the residential real estate was under a 10 years long slump. Then COVID happened and we hit a rock bottom, and people thought that, it will take more years to come back. But to all of us surprise, the market strongly came back. And most of us were thinking that it might be pent-up demand. But the demand continued, and then because of Ukraine war and supply chain issue, the input cost started to shoot up, and people were talking about that this might break the recovery because the cost is escalating. But still the momentum continued. And also when the interest rate started to go up, people were anticipating that during this quarter, the sales momentum might slow down, but none of these happened. Now, what are the things that are playing out right now? The first thing, in my opinion, is that, post-pandemic, I think the world is learning to live with uncertainties, be it, geopolitical or economical uncertainties. And, during uncertain times, it's human nature to seek a shelter, a roof over your head. And I think at this point of time, what I get to hear from the consumer and what I infer is that the urge of owning a home is all-time high. And it is also helped by various macroeconomic factors. The interest rates, though, have risen steeply, but still it is kind of quite lower than what it used to be, in double digits. The developers have strictly maintained a very strong discipline when it comes to increasing the price. They have kind of held on to their horses. They have not passed on the entire cost of input cost escalation to the buyers. They have maintained a very strict pricing discipline, and also focused very strongly on delivery. Last year, they completed, we completed 4 lakhs units that were completed and delivered. That has created a very positive momentum.
All right.
And if you look at the market, 85% of the buyers are end user. So in my opinion, stabilizing in an interest rate scenario, strong execution and delivery by developers, a good pricing discipline have helped out the buyers to come out in the market and buy.
Right, fascinating. Stay with us, Prashant. Karthik will just get you in just a second. We'll quickly go to Mr. Arvind Nandan, who joins us first thing this morning. Arvind, fascinating, isn't it? Housing sales are at an all-time high, and this time around, people are not buying houses as an investment option. Overwhelming majority buying a house because they want to own a house, a home.
Absolutely. Krishna, look, like you were saying, there is a kind of a sentiment shift that has taken place over the years. And let's not forget that India, to borrow the term from our Honorable Finance Minister, remains an island of stability and calm. So there is a lot of upheaval going on around the world. The world is in a spin, if I say the least. But still, the inherent trust and the faith in our own systems is very good. And, I'll tell you where the dichotomy is and what causes confusion. Our technology industry has a lot of dependence on the global markets, particularly the developed markets. So when the developed markets go in a spin, our grade A office absorption begins to shake. And that's already showing, in the office absorption. However, the domestic consumption, whether it is of homes or a few other things, do not reflect exactly the same pattern. So if you look at the car sales May numbers, or if you look at, let's say, the white goods sales projections, etc., they're not bad. In fact, everything is looking pretty much stable. Housing, of course, is one of the basic, commodities that a person buys, if he has had a stable run for a few, let's say a decade or so. So housing sales are definitely showing, that sentiment that people have the trust and the faith in the current economic stability, and it will go on. In fact, this is not the only quarter. This is not the only half when we've seen this stability. Even in last year, when there was uncertainty, second half of last year, housing sales did not suffer, the way people were hoping or anticipating it to suffer. So that tells us a story, Krishna, to say the least.
All right, stay with us, Arvind and Prashant. Karthik, fascinating insights, isn't it? In the middle of so much uncertainty, Indians are certain about one thing, and that is that they want to buy and own that house.
Isn't it a little counterintuitive, Krishna? When the world around you seems uncertain, you want to hold on to your cash. You want to save for the rainy day. Would you make a high value purchase like a home, especially at a time, and look at these numbers, at a time when there have been 11 successive rate hikes by the RBI, which have directly impacted home loan rates in double digits now. That's what Prashant just said.
Right.
Housing inventory, while available, the prices of that inventory have shot up about 6 to 10% on an average. Juxtapose this with job losses. There have been job losses. There is economic turmoil, there are global headwinds, there is supply chain constraint, prices are high, home loan interest rates are high, you're losing jobs and you're buying houses and cars, but we'll come to cars later, and you're buying houses. I mean, this whole scenario seems very counterintuitive. And look at the cities like Pune. Why a 60? I want to ask Prashant this. Why a 65% jump in housing in Pune versus a 9% decline in Bengaluru?
So, if you look at Bangalore's numbers for last 5 to 6 quarters, the launch and then sales were quite high. So I would not say that this decline should be taken in a negative way. I think this should be taken as the market kind of stabilizing. While if you look at Pune, the majority of launches have happened in the affordable segment. So over there, a project might have come which has a huge number of units. And Pune is a good mix of service and an IT sector, as well as manufacturing. So I think that's the shift. And then, Bangalore should not be taken as a negative because of 6% decline. It's only the reason that it has been a very strong performer throughout, I would say 8 to 9 quarters.
So you think Bengaluru already had a high base, and that base has now dwindled slightly, just about 9% or so. But talk to us about, let's say, Delhi NCR. Delhi NCR has seen prices rise, has pretty much consumers in a similar scenario facing the high interest rates on home loans, and yet it hasn't grown as substantially as a Pune or a Mumbai. So what is this geographic divide, and what sense do you draw out of this, Prashant?
See, if you look at NCR market, I think NCR was plagued with, huge amount of problems in terms of dubious developers, stuck projects, and huge amount of unsold inventory. For last couple of years, a lot of cleanup has happened. And if you look at the launches number from last 1 to 1.5 years, the launches have been muted. They have remained kind of, quite low, while the sales have been consistent, which has led to cleanup of a lot of inventory. So when and then if you look at the kind of developers, it's only grade A developers who are launching in NCR market. So NCR market being, a very strategically located in the capital region, and when the market gets cleaned up and the projects which comes up are only by grade A developers, I think both end users and certain segment of investor lap to it. And you would have seen that in last couple of months, we have seen projects from renowned developers that were, completely absorbed within a day or two. So that's the fact why, the unsold inventory has drastically come down. A lot of cleanup has happened.
Okay.
That has been quite strict, and you have seen certain court rulings also. That is bringing confidence back into the market. Okay. So that's one of the reason which is playing out in the NCR market right now.
Right. Arvind, help us make sense of this number. When we look at these numbers which were flashing on the screen some time back, are these numbers of houses that have been registered, or are these new bookings in houses? So what I want to understand really from you is that have these houses been taken possession of by end users, which means these could be houses booked maybe a few years earlier before the rate hikes had actually hit the consumer, or are these new bookings that we are talking about?
So look, these would be new bookings, and since the report is from ANAROCK, I think they should clarify. But
Right.
whenever
Prashant, so
sales
what are
numbers
these
are
numbers?
reported,
Prashant, are these numbers of new bookings or new possessions?
No, these are new bookings.
These are
They are
new
new bookings.
bookings.
yes,
Yeah.
these would be new bookings because that's how the data is usually gathered.
Okay.
The actual possession will happen many years later, and you could have certain fall off from that, but the fall off rates are not such alarming
Yeah.
historically that you need to be alerted by that.
Okay.
So
So,
obviously, these are booking numbers, and bookings are taking place, like we discussed earlier, based on a strong confidence about the near future. Yes, there have been job losses, but there is a general confidence in the near future. Look, housing purchases do not happen just because you suddenly woke up one day and you thought it's a good time to buy. Housing purchases happen with a confidence build up over the years and a confidence for the next few years. Historically, our borrowing rates are very high for housing. Although they have risen, by 4% or so, they are still not as bad as they used to be at some point. So, there is a kind of understanding that there is a plateauing that has taken place. Nobody is expecting the rates to go up by another 4-5% now. So, people start taking calls when they feel relatively secure in their positions. And I think that's where we are arriving at this point in time.
Prashant, before I hand it back to Krishna, how does data tell you that, like you mentioned, 85% of these are for end use and staying purposes and not for investment? Because if these are new bookings, we don't know whether the guys booking them are eventually going to live with them or they're going to sell them off or put them on rent. Because another assumption that comes to mind is that yesterday we saw markets at record high, and analysts for a long time have been saying that markets in India are overheated, and there is a great potential of markets not sustaining those peak levels. So is this an alternate investment, and how can data in fact tell you that this is for end use and not for investment?
See, most of the sales that are happening, I would say, first of all, the reason we say that is it's not for investment because the buyers are, majorly from service class. And looking at the rental yield, low rental yields that we have right now, I don't think investors would be interested at this point of time. There are certain pockets like, Gurgaon and NCR where investors might be active. But at this point of time, mostly the buyers are from service classes.
Okay.
They come from IT, ITS, and other the service sectors.
Okay, so
And
one final question to Arvind. Sorry, Krishna, I'll just hand it over to you. Arvind, talk to us about the average yield that the real estate sector has given, let's say, over the last 5 years or the last 10 years, 3, 5, 10. If you can just run us through those numbers and, if possible, compare them with other investment classes.
Yeah, ballpark. I can do that ballpark.
Sure.
Look, when you say real estate, you've got to differentiate very clearly between commercial and non-commercial. Resi
Okay.
is primarily a non-commercial. And then in this case, Resi barely yields 2.5%, in some cases even lower. So it's really not an investor-friendly kind of a asset class. The commercial could yield much higher, much better yields in the range of 9% or so. We are speaking of pre-tax. So therefore, if you are looking at Resi, the investor does not find it very lucrative unless the investor looks at a capital appreciation in the longer term. That means you've got to have a holding cycle of about 7, 8, 10 years.
Okay.
So that's been consistently the case, last several years. So the other thing which I wanted to bring to your notice, when we were discussing as to how do you assess whether these are investors or the end users, you've got to look at the segment where the buying is taking place. And I think predominantly buying is taking place in the segment of 50 lakhs to a crore, which is typically not the investors, category. There would be some investors in that category, but primarily, the middle class of India is in that range, which buys it for self-use. So, there are a couple of indicators. It's not a great investment return that you earn out of it on a yield basis. And secondly, the category in which the buying is taking place is a kind of proxy or an indicator, which shows us, who that might be, the buyer.
Okay.
Right. Prashant, I wanted to ask you, now take this back to the report, and I want to understand, because there are Indians from 7 top cities who are now at the focus of this report, who are buying all these houses. My hometown Chennai saw a 71% rise in new projects being launched. It saw a 44% rise in bookings, second only to Pune. Pune was a 65% rise in bookings, whereas Chennai saw 44%, Hyderabad of 21%, and Kolkata for 20%. If you can tell me something, any particular trend you're witnessing, why is suddenly the Chennai market seeing such a big upswing as compared to its other peers, whereas Hyderabad is supposed to be the hottest property market down south?
See, first of all, again, it's the factor of low base, which is relevant to Calcutta and Chennai, and also for last 6 quarters, the launches in both these cities were very muted. So that's that's one of the reasons for a huge double-digit jump that is showing in both sales and launches. Now, a particular trend, if you have to see, if you look at the data, 3 cities have been the cornerstone for the entire residential real estate. One is MMR, the second one is Bangalore, and third is NCR. This story has been consistent, and why Hyderabad all of a sudden is showing a huge surge. So Hyderabad, in my opinion, is playing out to be a very fairly stable market. And in my opinion, and a couple of investors whom I spoke, after Amravati debacle, a lot of money is flowing back into Hyderabad. When Amravati was being built up as a capital of the new Andhra Pradesh state, a lot of investment was being diverted in that city. And now with that story going off the table, a lot of money has come back. And Hyderabad, if you see both in terms of infrastructure, in terms of presence of multinational companies, the quality of living over there is quite high. And that's the reason the launches have been pretty strong, as well as the sales.
Right. Arvind, if I were to ask your thoughts on how the different markets are playing out, the problem with the NCR market, what's happening in Noida. Tell us about what's happening in Hyderabad, because there was this sense that, maybe Chennai is, tapped out, Bengaluru is tapped out. Hyderabad could be the new beacon of hope for all those looking to buy property.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a very valid hope. It's a very valid statement, actually. But we got to remember a few things, when we speak of Hyderabad. Hyderabad is a market which came up on the back of, Chennai's so-called decline in comparison to Bangalore. And it started tapping into all the economic demand which was spilling over from Bangalore. So Hyderabad established itself that way. And of course, it got a lot of policy backing and everything else which went in its favor. Hyderabad is a market today which is in the ideal price range for a typical Indian buyer. When I say ideal price range, I mean 5 times of the average annual income. Now, typically a market which offers products in the range of, let's say, 40 to 70, 75 lakhs is the best market. Hyderabad, a large part of Hyderabad offers, products in that range. It has got a very nice category. Even Bangalore has, but Bangalore is slightly moving out of that range. On top of this, Hyderabad is a place which is continuously, adding a lot of commercial office and therefore has a lot of prospect for its future growth. So Hyderabad is something which is looked at as a very futuristic place. And even if you are not there right now, you might want to just go and invest there. So
all right,
a lot of things work in Hyderabad's favor.
Right. Even if you're not there, it's about time to look at Hyderabad. It's about coming from Arvind Nandan. Arvind Nandan, Managing Director, Research and Consulting of Savills India, and Prashant Thakur, Head Research of ANAROCK. Thank you, both of you gentlemen, for taking time out to be with us this morning here on Business Plus and helping us understand what exactly is going on with housing sales across India, which have hit a record all-time high.